Welcome, friends. It is I, your LostScarf, and it's time for the Firewatch post-game thoughts. We thought it'd be interesting to talk about the game a little bit after playing the game. It might be an interesting way to think about things, and just go over things that we might have missed. So let's talk about Firewatch. What I think Firewatch is, I think it's like a, not necessarily a walking simulator, but an interactive story. I think that's just the best way to put it is, here's a story and you interact with it. What's interesting is there's actually different ways the game can go depending on the conversations you have, which is great to know. I talked to Jinx about it, and she says there's a lot of different ways the story can go a little bit, depending on how you respond to things and how you do things. And let's just go over the game, just over the flow of it. Let's just go for the start of it, like day one. It has an Up opening. If you've never seen the Pixar movie Up, you don't know what I mean, but at the start of Up, they do a very good job of making you incredibly depressed at the start of that movie, because really sad things happen. It's a very bittersweet opening of that movie. And this is the same thing. And I really like this moment, not this moment, but this start here, because it is depressing and very sad, makes you want to walk into the ocean, but it also shows you some backstory of the character while being interactive at the same time. We see that he doesn't want to leave where he lives, like he's willing to have her commute to go back and forth instead of going to live where she is going to be for her teaching and stuff like that. You learn how, of course, how we met her, and how they did things together. Your choice of animal also develops the character, but through your choices on them. You just learn about this guy through your choices and just through his background, through just the start, through the Up opening, which is really cool. We just learn a lot about him in a couple minutes because of this. Part of it is by us, and part of it is just by the game presenting it itself, because, like I said, you don't have an option where you can go live with your wife for some reason. He would rather have her either stay, or she commutes, which is crazy. That's interesting in that you get some choice, but not all choice. So you get some character development that is not because of you, but because of the game itself, which is pretty cool there. And of course, we know he wanted to do the Firewatch because, well, he wanted to get away from everything. He just needed some time to himself because, holy crap, that's a heavy business he's been dealing with. And so we meet Delilah the first night, and that goes interestingly. And the thing about that is, what I've been told by Jinx is that there's a lot of different ways the game can go. And one is, you can never mention Julia. So Delilah never knows about Julia. So Delilah will never mention going back to her at the end of the whole thing. That's an interesting thing going on there is, you can leave your personal life personal. You don't tell Delilah any of that, which I found very interesting. So what this does, it makes every run through of the game different depending on how you do it. So that's cool. So my run through of the game would be different from you guys and girls' run through of the game depending on your responses. Jinx tells me you can actually not talk to Delilah at all, which really flips her the hell out, which is great. That's pretty cool. Which makes me think, if you don't talk to Delilah at all, does she just think you're a crazy person? Does she just think you're doing all the bad things that happen in the game? I'm really curious about that. I definitely am. And it'd be interesting to do another run-through of Firewatch in the future, just to see what other ways it could go. You got day one, you're getting there, and day two, if I remember correctly, day two is the fireworks with the camping teens. And so, that interaction's interesting in that there's a couple different ways that can go. And that, you're just going around. It's really funny how it's presented. You're like, okay, some drunken campers are here putting up fireworks. And you're like, well, that's annoying. And then of course, you go there and you see that they're nude now. You're like, oh, hey now. And it's funny. Like, the interactions I had over that were pretty funny. Like, he's really shy about, there's girls here and they're naked. I thought that was funny. What's interesting is, I destroyed their radio. Jinx did not. She actually just put it back. I'm like, oh, okay, so you don't destroy that. You still get blamed for it, though. And the reason for that is, of course, Ned. This is where it gets interesting when you think about it after we've gone through the whole thing. What Ned did in the game. When we're heading back, we run into Ned. And what Ned's been doing is, Ned at some point took the radio from the girls because what he does is anyone who comes around, he scares them off because they want them to find his son, but he also takes supplies from people so he can keep things going. So if we don't destroy the radio, he does. So that they'll get all pissed off about it. But when when your base gets wrecked, I didn't think it was the girls. I thought something else happened because it's impossible for the girls to get back to do that. How could they get there before you do? But apparently it was supposed to be that you're supposed to think it was them that wrecked your place, but it was Ned, of course. Ned is pitting you against the teenagers. That's what he's doing. He wrecked your place so that you think it's the girls doing it after what you interacted with them, because the girls were pretty much a bunch of dicks. Like, they're a bag of dicks, those girls were. And then, of course, next thing you gotta do is deal with the power lines. And this is Ned framing you and the girls at the same time. He wrecked their camp. he cut the power lines. So you had to go up there, and you can see that you think the girls did the cutting, but you gotta think about it logistically. How did the girls get up there to cut that line? How would they know to do that or anything like that? That's like, I don't know, like, what would possess teenage girls to do that anyway? Of course, there's like beer cans everywhere, so it's all set up to just make you think that these stupid teens are doing this, and then when you go to find their camp, you want to scare them off, you see their camp's all wrecked up. Thought maybe a bear was there or something, but it was Ned again, because they blame you for the camp getting wrecked. And then, of course, we know, like, a couple days later, you had the conversation with Delilah, and she lies about your interactions with the girls, and the truth, of course, is that the teenage girls they went up and stole a tractor or something, and then they got arrested, so they've been in jail this entire time. But then you've got, like, then there's the supply run? I'm trying to see if I remember this correctly. Like, there's also the part where we find Brian's backpack. We find Brian's backpack at some point. We use that for all the roping from that point on. Kid had a lot of rope for some reason. But we know why, because the dad wanted them to do a lot of climbing and stuff, and the kid didn't really want to do a lot of climbing. But he did lose his backpack, not on purpose, because we see later on that he wanted to find a way to get his backpack back up. We also find the kid's, of course, map of the entire place, where he just named things a bunch of things, which is just funny. We learn more about the kid, and we learn stuff about Delilah from her interactions with the kid and all that stuff, which is pretty cool. Or we just learn none of that at all. I'm kind of curious if you do a silent run where you don't talk to her, if you, actually, no, because you find Brian's stuff, you know who Brian is, you just don't know who he is completely. Because you find his stuff, you find his base, that'll give you more information about the kid, and then you find the kid himself. So, I think as far as Brian goes, you do know who Brian is. You might not know who Ned is, though. I don't remember if there's any interactions, if you could do it on your own without Delilah, that made you know about Ned. I'm not sure. What Jinx tells me is, when you find the teen's camp, you can actually find the fence early. You can find the fence then, so that creates all this mystery of what the hell is this fence about? And what's interesting about that is that Delilah doesn't know anything about that fencing. Because that's like a college research thing going on there. Which is very interesting that she doesn't know anything about that, considering like she has to have an overview of the entire forest. For some reason she doesn't know that. That's what's a trip there. Oh yeah, of course, the power line got cut by Ned so that Delilah could not easily make a call out to find out who this random guy that Henry ran into, because she usually checks like who's been running around the forest. So there's that. And then of course you see that fire, and you can name the fire. I'm guessing you can just not talk to Delilah at all, and that would just annoy her some more. But eventually, of course, we find Ned's clipboard, and then things get crazy. I'm really interested in what the clipboard looks like if you do a silent run with Delilah. Or are there conversations you're required to have, whether you can do silent or not, that will show up on the clipboard? Because I'm assuming, there's two ways to assume it, because I haven't played it, is that you don't talk at all whatsoever, or you do interact with Delilah a little bit by scripted before you actually get to touch the radio yourself. I'm wondering if that's a thing at all. Really curious about that. Let's see here. But let's see. There's that. There's the camp. There's the fire. And then, of course, there's a supply run. There's a special day you can get if you take all the supplies. If you take more than just your supplies, a special day you can get where she's like, did you take the extra supplies? And you can reply to that. So that's a funny little thing. But when we find Ned's clipboard, we get all spooked and stuff. I thought of so many conspiracy theories, and you could hear it when I was talking about it in the game. Just so many conspiracy theories, like, what's going on? What's this? What's that? What's all these things that could be happening? Just think, like, there's got to be something crazy happening here. There's got to be something nuts. And then it happens more so when you talk to Delilah. And Jinx was surprised when Henry thinks he's crazy. Jinx never got that, but never got that option for Henry to think he's nuts, which is interesting. So there are different ways to just play through this game and have interactions. By the way, the voice acting is amazing. These people do a really good job. And the writing's really good as far as just the different talks that they can have. It's pretty cool and just how well it's delivered. They did a great job. If I remember correctly, I think Jinx told me that they actually, they were both there in the studio, so they were able to just say things together naturally instead of just one person at a time, so that you had to just, if you're the first person, you just say all the lines, the second person has to respond to them. Well, this one, they're talking to each other in the studio, which is a lot better. That is my understanding. At least, I think that's what Jinx told me. I could be wrong. Oh, Jinx never found the turtle. She never found it. Apparently there's 12 places you can find the turtle, I think someone said. What was I talking about? I was talking about the fence, talking about the girl camp, and then the fire, and I'm trying to go through memory as to what's happening, because I can't remember perfectly what happens and everything. There's, of course, the two ranger guys talking to each other. Apparently, I missed their look at their hiding place. There's apparently a special place where those two guys go to hang out, and I didn't find it. And apparently, there's like a radio or something that you can listen to. So my bad on not finding that. Those guys were curious. And just, yeah, like conspiracy, they're like, are they doing tests? Are they doing this? Are they doing that thing? All this craziness going on here. And eventually, of course, we get the axe. And here's something that's interesting. Jinx saw this on the internet. When you get the axe, you can actually go visit Delilah. She's not actually at her place when you get there. You can actually go to her place early. I'm really curious if that even affects anything if you mess with her stuff. But then you can go ahead and go to the base, or not the base, to the fencing area and get in there. And here's where I get things wrong, according to Jinx, is that Ned didn't set up that fencing area. That's a college research area. That's where they're doing research on a thing. The only thing Ned did was put the paperwork in there to make you think some sort of conspiracy. That's the only thing that Ned did. That is it. Everything else, it was already there. You go there, all that stuff is there, except for the things that Ned added there to mess with you. And then you take that radar gun thing, and then you leave, and then Ned lights the place on fire. As far as I know, you can't do it yourself. I think you talked about it, but you can't do it yourself. At least from what I've seen, you can't actually light the college place on fire yourself. Like, you are completely, for the most part, sinless in the game, minus if you destroy the girl's radio. But everything else, you're just interacting with stuff that Ned caused or get manipulated by Ned. And of course, later on, you find that backpack because of the gun, and then your place gets messed up, and that's all Ned doing some that's Ned trying to be smart. Like, he makes you go to this place, and he has that alarm go off so he knows you're there, so that he can just wreck your place and figure out what the hell you think is going on. So he's basically scouting with a trap. That's what he's doing there. Then eventually you go down into the cave, and he tries to lock you in. His hope is that you'll just die down there. But it's really weird that he lets you go down there, because you're going to find his boy, probably, although it's a big splunking area. Maybe you won't find his boy, but he's thinking you're going to get stuck down there and you're going to die, because he just doesn't want to deal with you. But at the same time, by locking you down there, Delilah's going to know, like, if you talk to her, that you're going to be down in that cave, so she's going to send people there eventually. So eventually they're going to find Brian's body, so I don't know what Ned's plan was there. Like, eventually Ned just gives up because he doesn't want to kill anyone anymore, despite the fact he tried to just kill you in the cave. And that was a heck of a moment when you see that shoe down, like, okay, what's that shoe about? And then when you find Brian's dead body, it's like, oh, they foreshadow that pretty well. And you see, of course, you find the kids' anchors and all that stuff, and you find his little base, and they did a good job. I felt like they did pretty good pacing on that, in that you're going through things, you learn about Brian, you learn about Ned, you learn about all these things, and then bam, you find Brian, you're like, oh crap, that's Brian. Oof, that's Brian. That's too bad right there, and you tell Delilah about it. I'm wondering about a silent run on that. Like, I keep thinking about how the silent run would work with this. Now I gotta try it at some point just to see how the game goes when you do it that way. I'm just very curious now. And you just find Brian, and eventually Ned just gives up, like, okay, well, I'm not gonna kill Henry, so I'll just let Henry know the truth, because this fire is gonna destroy everything anyway, so there won't be any much evidence except Henry knowing. And he just lets you know the truth. You find it, and you go, okay. And you just see all this stuff. And in the back of my head was, all this stuff made by Ned is a lie, and it really is a government thing. Because this is the thing about, maybe people are just me, it's just the paranoia of maybe there's something bigger. Now, considering there's a lot of truthers and conspiracy theorist people, no, there's a lot of people who think there's got to be something bigger. That's what's happening. Is I'm going like, we got our answer. But because games rarely give you all the answers that easily, I'm like, maybe this isn't the truth. Maybe it is a lie. Maybe Delilah's in on something. I would assume that earlier conversation with Delilah's on the phone is her talking about Javier, talking about her boyfriend, how, no, he doesn't know. He doesn't know I'm cheating on him and stuff like that. I think that's what Delilah was doing in that conversation. She wasn't talking about you, she was talking about her boyfriend. But yeah, everything just gets erased by the fire. The only one with proof is you, and kind of Delilah, because you talk to her or you don't talk to her. And then you get going. And all the way to the end, it was just this tension of, is there going to be a twist? Besides the story just unfolding. Is there going to be another twist? Is it going to be this actually is an experiment or anything like that? All the way to the last minute, I was feeling like maybe there's going to be something more. And there wasn't. That's it. You're done. And some people were like, they didn't like that it just ended like that. Where it just ends. But I think that's appropriate. This is just a crazy time one summer for these characters. That's what it is. And as a story, that works out to me. That works out very well. It's an interactive story, and you go through it, and very interesting. I really enjoyed this game. It's very cool, and I really want to try it as a silent run now. Like, I just keep talking about that because I'm curious how that works. I'm really curious how it works if you don't say anything. Because apparently Delilah just starts freaking out. She's like, why won't you answer me? And stuff like that. So I'm definitely curious how that would work out for sure. And are there plot holes? I don't know if there's plot holes. I'm thinking about it. I think more so it's just Ned's planning. Like, because Ned's just got in the background, you don't see too much. Try to think of, like, could he possibly gotten here and there and all these places? And potentially, yes, but I don't know. Like, you see Ned on your way back up from after interacting with the radio. So the question is, okay, so Ned sees you. He gets spooked right then and there. Where does he go first? Has he been paying attention this whole time and you accidentally run into him when he was scouting and just watching what was happening? And he's like, whoops, and you messed up? And then he takes the radio and then he wrecks your place? Or did he wreck your place already ahead of time? Why would he do that? And just like that. Well, he's been listening to radio conversations the whole time. But that's the question is, it's a bit iffy on where Ned is at the start. Like, you run into Ned, that's what spooks him. But this is you heading back to the tower. So was Ned's thought process going, he's got to go through the caves. I'm going to get to his place first, wreck the place, then go back down and get the radio? Was that what his thought process was? Because the other way would be he goes down, gets the radio, and climbs back up and wrecks your place, which would not be possible. Same thing goes with the girls. The way they're going, there's no way they can get back to your place before you. Like, how would they know to get there faster than you since you got to do all this climbing around and stuff? So, I guess that's how it is. Like, Ned just went from listening, he's like, okay, this is what's going on, and then he runs into you, and you're like, uh-oh. And then he causes all these manipulations. I just don't know. That seems like the most plot hole possible spot right there. But according to Jinx, when it comes to the research area, there's hints all over the place that it's a research area. I just wasn't paying enough attention from the reading. Which is interesting since I read most of the stuff that your character should probably get the hint that there's no one there. Because it mentions that there's no one there during the summer. Like, those guys aren't there during the summer. They're there at other times. And so that should have been a clue that Ned's messing with the place. It was very interesting, that entire run of the game. And yeah, like, it's just interesting, and I really want to try this out on a just never interacting with Delilah run. I'm really curious how the game works out that way. Definitely curious. But there you go, that is the afterthoughts there. I probably missed some things. It was pretty fun. It was definitely a fun ride. And we'll see if we do another game like this in the future. Well, probably. We play a lot of games. We play a lot of things, do a lot of stuff. Up next, it was going to be a different kind of game. We already did the beta for it, and it's going to be right after it comes out. We're going to do Hitman. We're going to do Hitman until that episode's done, because Hitman is like episodic, so they're going to put out more episodes over time, which is a weird thing. You can buy the first episode for $15, or you can just buy the whole thing for $60 as a game, and you just get more content as the months go on. So we're going to do Hitman next, and it'll be however long it takes us to do the first episode of Hitman, and then we'll see how we LP the rest of it in the future, and we'll see what we LP after Hitman. Or while Hitman's happening, just because just the way the episodes are going. It's going to be a bit screwy. But there you go. That right there is the afterthoughts. I had fun talking. I had fun listening. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.